With the rise of technology, and with now having the ability to be able to play classic games through emulation, opens up a whole new world of possibilities, but also gives the option for fans of old, but even new fans, to get involved with reliving the nostalgic memories of all of these old classics. So it's a pretty cool time to get involved with this technology, as you can access a plethora of games, pretty much to a point that it's crazy with the list of games that you could play, to a point that it's insane to even think of the amount of them that's available. You have everything from the likes of old 8-bit consoles, even with down to the Atari 2600, Sega Master System, NES, even up to the Mega Drive, Super Nintendo, 16-bit consoles, and even up to more modern consoles such as the 32-bit era with the Sega Saturn, Sony PlayStation, even further beyond with the PS2, and even being able to emulate even old PC games. And in some cases you can emulate even more modern consoles such as the likes of the PlayStation 3 and so forth. There's a lot of clever people out there that are finding new ways to make advancements on old ideas to bring these concepts to the masses. Now, while technically we're not supposed to be able to have access to these kind of ideas, but still, with the rise of the internet, there's always going to be a possibility that something's going to be out there for somebody to gain access to. And the truth is if you look hard enough, you'll definitely be able to find it. And the same goes with this Sega collection. It's a collection of classic games and remasters that would have been added to the likes of the PlayStation 2 back in the day. Now, many of these games would have been added to the Sega Ages 2500 collection that would have originally seen a release in Japan for the console, that would have provided individual releases for many classic games. You have the likes of Sega Rally, there's Virtua Fighter 2, Space Harrier, among many other iconic Sega arcade classics, and some of them would also get re-released in other regions under the Sega Classics collection. And from my own experience, I have owned that collection way back in the day, and you had access to Outrun, Space Harrier, Golden Axe, among many other classic titles, even Alien Syndrome, where everything has been pretty much reworked from the ground up to provide a whole new experience for gamers during that time, which was during the mid-2000s. So this collection here isn't an official release, but it's a fan-made collection to combine some of the best arcade classics that would have been seen, that's been created by fans, which you can now gain access to online, and you can play it through emulation, which is another great way to get access to a lot of these classics. So for myself, it really was a no-brainer to go and revisit it, and to be able to get the chance to play a lot of these old games, but also to have everything in the one place, which is even better again. Now, in saying that, all the games do work and they're fine. Now, it could be down to the emulation settings that I've chosen to use, because I use the PC SX2 emulator, and at least 90% of the games run flawlessly, no issues at all. But there are a number of games that I found that for some reason don't seem to work as well. Well, they're playable and you can see what's going on, but just the graphics and the textures and the colour palettes don't show up. Everything that you can see here on the screen is just in black and white. And there's a few games that have this issue, and more so the fighting games with the likes of Sonic the Fighters, Fighting Vipers, Fighters Impact, and even with Sega Rally. Now, it doesn't take away from the experience as such. You can still play the games and they're still playable to some degree. It's just, it does take away some of the elements, because to get the best experience you do want to be able to see all of the visuals and everything the game has to offer. Now, it could have been down to maybe a setting that I didn't change on the emulator itself, because everything else worked fine, so I can't really figure out what to really do. I've tried everything that I can think of and I can't seem to get it to work. So if anyone does know what could be the issue, I'd love to hear it, so be sure to share it down in the comments below and let me know. But aside from that, this is a great selection of games. Like, you have other titles, anything from the likes of Virtua Racing, you have Sonic R, there's even the Fantasy style games, loads of different types of puzzle games, Gain Ground, you have Fantasy Zone, you have Dynamite Deca, which essentially is Die Hard Arcade, so that's even a more modern version of that game, and that game was awesome on the Sega Saturn. So to get to play it with a more modern take is even more of an excuse to play it. It's such a good game, and it's such a laugh as well, especially if you're playing with your mates. But you also do have access to many other classic titles, even going back to like the Sega Mega Drive with the likes of Bonanza Brothers and Columns, and even Gain Ground. So there's a multitude of different games that are available. Even a remake of Space Harrier, which I would have originally played way back on the Sega Master System growing up. So there are many cool games here that are definitely worth playing. And even with Sega Rally, for me, that's one of my favourite racing games of all time. I think Sega Rally genuinely is one of the best racing games out there, and it still holds well today. It's just such an iconic classic that everybody, I think, should play at some point in their life, or definitely revisit, because it's, for me, it's definitely one of those games that I still go back to revisit every so often, more so in recent years, because I did play it in arcades growing up and I absolutely loved it. But in more recent years, within the last 10 or 12 years, I went and bought a Sega Saturn myself, because it was the one console I never had growing up, and it was the one console that always kind of eluded me to the games that were available. So when I did eventually buy it, I had to buy Sega Rally for it, and you know what? It's definitely one of the best racers out there. I don't care what anyone says. It's just as good on the Saturn as most modern racing games as you see on other consoles, and it still plays just as good today. So even with this collection, getting to play a remastered edition of it is definitely a no-brainer. Now mind you, if you can get it to work, but if you do, you'll have a great time with it. It's such a good game. I definitely recommend you try it out. So it's a great selection of games that are available. If there's anything there that will tickle your fancy, pretty much, you will have a blast with it. And there's pretty much a variety or a good selection of games there that will appeal to different types of gamers. Anything from racing to fighting, strategy, RPG, puzzle, it has it all. So while I can't share where exactly you can get it, all you have to do is just spend a bit of time, do a bit of research and look online, and eventually you'll find it. But it's definitely a worthwhile addition if you have a catalogue of games already stored away that you play on emulators. This would be definitely another one to add to your list for sure. And again, many of these games would have gotten their own releases in Japan under the Sega Ages 2500 series. Even the remastered edition of Sega Rally was also released in Japan as well. So it'd be worthwhile having a look into them if you're looking for something different to play also. And I would love to know your thoughts on this collection of games, if you even know about it or if you have played it yourself. And what do you think of it overall, and what types of games in this collection would you be more favoured towards playing, or what type of games do you enjoy playing the most? So I'd love to hear whatever stories you do have of it, so be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be updated of future videos. And if you would like to see more videos on other types of quirky and unusual classics that you can also gain access to that were released for the PlayStation or even just by fans in general, then you can check out the playlist on screen to see more of those games in action. And I will see you all in the next one.